Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Undefined. And today I am very excited. I am joined by my friend JD. He is from the band
King Inc.
They are based in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and they have been putting out music for quite a bit now, and they've been touring, and they have a couple new songs. One that had came out this year, Good News, and then one coming out in January. And I'm excited to talk to you today. How are you today, JD?
I'm doing great. I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing, Bella?
I'm doing great. So I want you
Good.
to tell us more about your band. How'd you get
Sure.
started in music? You are a lifelong music fan, and you're in this band
Yes.
with your brother, correct? It's your brother and some friends?
No, so yes and no. So the
Yeah.
band now so King Inc. was me at first, kind of about 6 years ago, wanting to be like, I've been writing songs since high school, like many people, and going, I want to have a record of this. I want to have something where 10, 20, 30 years from now, I can look back and go, oh yeah, I was in the band and this is the music, and have recordings of it. And we thankfully have a family friend who was in a couple big bands in the late 90s and has a beautiful home studio where it was accessible. So I obviously still paid for it and all the stuff, but I knew where to go for it. And so I had my brother's in a band called Low Phase, which insanely good, worth listening to. Low Phase are fantastic. But for the first couple EPs, I would just write all the music, and then bring him and his buddies in to record live. And then the few live shows I had, they would kind of play with me a little bit, but it was mainly studio recordings. And then about a little over a year ago, a year and a half ago, I was kind of like, I think I'm done. Like with working full time and being a parent, all these things, I was just doing all of it by myself. Yes. I was like, I just don't think I have the energy to keep this going, because I love writing and I can still keep doing that. But if I have no one to collaborate with, it's just not as fun. Right around then, one of my best friends moved back from Florida, and she was always like she was in a band with me in high school, kind of creative partner in crime. And I'd always send her, it was almost postal service-esque, where I'd like send her a song, she'd give me feedback and stuff.
Yeah.
And then once she moved back, and then her brother is an amazing guitar player. And then it was just kind of like 6 months later, we had a full band of 4 people. But the idea was like, the band is not just me and people playing live. Like the 4 of us are a band now. And that was about August, September, I think. And now, like, we're sitting here now with like a headline show coming up, new singles coming out, plans for an EP and tour. Like, my wife always jokes that about a year and a half ago, like I said, we were driving home from a show that did not go well. And I said to her, I'm like, I think I'm done. And then, we're here now. And like a month and a half ago, when we have a show this month and a show next month. And when we got both of those shows within a couple of weeks ago, I said, oh, we just got offered this holiday show. And she goes, I think I'm quitting the band. I think, like, making fun of me, because I'm like, I didn't know this was going to happen. So so now it's a permanent 3-piece right now. Our drummer left the band a couple of weeks ago. So the permanent 3-piece. I'm writing music collaboratively with people who are insanely skilled musicians and and good songwriters. And I've never felt so like energized by what we're doing, because it actually feels collaborative. It actually feels like a group of us trying, like, we have a vision, we have a direction, we have all these things that we didn't have before. And so it just feels very electric right now, which is super fun.
Wow, that's really exciting. Yeah, that's super inspiring. So we've talked a little bit, and you're a diehard music fan. And so you've been writing since you were in high school. Do you play as well? Like, what's your experience like learning how to play guitar? Were you always into music? Was that something like your brother as well? Was that something that you were always obsessed with as children? Or like, how did you kind of...
I don't know. I feel like I'm one of the few kids who's like, my parents forced me into so many like outside of school programs as a kid, and I am like nothing but grateful for them, because like the experiences all turned out to be great. Like, my mom forced me to take up swimming in high school or middle school. She's like, you're gonna swim. And I swam, played water polo, and it's like been a part of my, I mean, I don't do either of those anymore, but like it put me on like the health journey of like taking care of myself. And then they also kind of, my recollection is they basically were just like, hey, we think you should take guitar lessons with the guy from church. And I was like, okay. Like, I've always loved music. I don't remember ever expressly saying, I want to learn how to play guitar. but I did. And then I took lessons, and then my brother took lessons after that. And then, you know, we're here now. So like, I've been a music fan like you said, my whole life. I still feel like I learned how to play guitar up until a point, and I've never gotten better since then. Like everybody in the band is a better musician than I am. I love playing, and I have a couple books to start to get better and learn more technique. But the joke was that literally my guitar teacher was like, I'm going to take the summer off because I've got family and stuff, and then we'll pick up in the fall. And then he moved during the summer, like out of the state. And I was just like, I guess that's all I'm going to learn. And so yeah, I like everybody in the band. I can play a little bit of drums. I mainly play guitar. I can play a little bit of piano, but everyone in the band is so much better. And so it's fun to be like, just musically, that opens the door to so much new kinds of music for us to write, because we're not limited by my novice skill level of guitar playing. We're limited by literally nothing anymore.
Wow, that's awesome. So I wanted to kind of talk like briefly about the journey of like, how has it been creatively of you doing it kind of solo for the few years and doing it kind of more casually, but now that you have this collaborative unit, how has working with your bandmates inspired you, and do you approach writing and performing differently now that you have this new setup?
1,000%. When I write, I feel like when I'm the early versions of most songs I write are very Jeff Tweedy-esque, like acoustic guitar, strumming 3 or 4 chords, finding the melody. And then, and I like that. I feel comfortable in that. It feels good. But then for the first couple EPs, it was like every time we were going into the studio, my brother and I and his friends, we were, and the producer, we were kind of writing the versions of it in the studio. Like on our first EP, we have a song called Who Knows, which is like this big rock song. And I remember saying to my brother, I'm like, this is either like a quieter, folkier Jeff Tweedy song, or it's like a My Morning Jacket rock song. And he goes, it's that. He goes, it's a rock song. And I was like, okay, let's do that. But we figured that part out in the studio as we were recording it. Like, oh, we should try this or that. And so I felt, and that's kind of why I felt kind of plateaued, because I was like, after the second EP came out, I'm like, I've got 8 more songs or whatever, but they all just feel the same to me. They all feel like it was very hard to bounce it off anybody. And so once we started writing with the four of us, so Becca and Evan are the siblings in the band. They both play bass and guitar. They switch on certain songs, and then Evan plays saxophone on some songs. We have like the new song that we have coming out in January. It was so fun because like Evan just came in. He was like, I have this thing I want to try. We played it. He's like, I'm really excited about it. He played it. We're like, let's just do it. And the pressure was like off me to do all of the work. Like this one, and then the other single we'll have come out later in the year were 2 songs where I helped musically, but I basically wrote the lyrics and some of the melodies to them. And at first I was like, did you contribute enough? And I'm like, no, that's literally being in a band, dude. Like, so it feels really freeing because 1, my ideas get bounced off of and get improved upon, and they see things that I wouldn't see. And then 2, I feel like it's the first time where I get to feel what the music is saying to me and then write about that. Where I kind of go, like with Gone in a Flash, I was like, what is this feeling to me? What is this evoking? And then starting to write lyrics, scribble things, and get to a point where you've got a full set of lyrics. Whereas before, I was trying to write the music, write the lyrics, find the melody all at the same time. And it was harder to feel like there was a spark there when you're doing all of that, for me at least. And so it's just been, I mean, and it's probably very cliche, but it just feels very free. Like I get to feel more creative. I get to explore a bit more. And I genuinely, like, not to be self-deprecating, but like, I genuinely feel like the songs are just better because 1, there's 3 or 4 different minds in the room. And 2, they know how to play and come up with ideas that I would have never dreamed of. So they bring something to the table that I'm like, I wouldn't have even thought about that. And here we are, so the next song that we're working on right now that we're writing, the band that we keep having in mind for what we're looking for is Wham, and like weird, like 80s pop rock. And it's still our version of it. Because like with the new single Gone in a Flash, the idea was we were like chasing out like 70s vibes, like kind of easy rock, yacht rock sort of vibes. And I really liked that, but I was kind of nervous that it would feel like we're going to try to do this sort of a song.
Exactly.
And it turned out like, at least I feel listening to it now, where I go, no, this sounds like us. It's just a little bit different. And so when we said Wham, I was like, 1, when I was writing the first songs 6-7 years ago, I never would have thought that we would be trying to sound like Wham or like Springsteen or whatever.
Yeah.
But we are, and it feels natural. And so it's like, I never know where it's going to take us. And that's very freeing.
I love it. It was very fun. And so, being such a passionate music fan and having a lot of bands that you are really influenced by, how do you kind of work with that as a musician and as a band where, like, yes, we want to kind of take those and we're inspired by that, but like you just said, like, this sounds like us. How has that been for you to kind of take like bands that you really look up to, but then create something that this is our music. This separates us.
It's a good question, because I have this weird notion in my head that we have to sound like a specific thing. Even if that thing is very broad, I still kind of go, we have to go in this category. And Becca's always challenging me, like, why though? Why do we have like, and I'm like, well, because when you establish a band, you establish an identity. And if our next EP was all like weird trance, like synth-based music, it would not be what people signed up for. But at the same time, that I never want that to be a restriction. So it's kind of a weird balance. And I also think, like, I know before we started recording, we talked about the Mountain Goats a little bit. John Darnielle is a huge metal head. He's huge into death metal, heavy metal. There's barely any Mountain Goat songs that sound like that. And so I think kind of going into this project, when it became a little more serious, I already had this notion that, like, I may not sound like my favorite bands in the world, and that's okay. Like, that doesn't make the music any less me or influenced by them. Like, I feel like I'm influenced by the Mountain Goats every day, but I don't think there's very little King Ink music you could listen to that and identify Mountain Goats in that. Which I think is kind of fun. So then it becomes a thing of, everyone always asks, what bands do you think you sound like? And like, for fans of blank, and you're like, I don't know. Like, we were named from a local a regional publication, like top 10 bands of the year. And their, for fans of was Bleachers, Springsteen, and the Killers. And I was like, okay, like, I'm so happy with that. But I don't know if I ever would have said, I think Bleachers is a band that we chase a lot, because like, my biggest goal with performing live is to make it a fun experience. Like, I just want it to be enjoyable. I want it to be joyful. I want people to dance if they want to dance. Dance if they, I heard.
I got your reference.
But no, I just want it to be something where people walk away going, that was so much fun. And I think Bleachers is one of those bands that really captures that. You see them live and you're just like, they're having a great time on stage. I'm having fun watching it. And so Becca, so all that to say, like, Becca's really challenged me to kind of go, like, there's been a couple songs that I've been working on lately that have felt moodier and a little darker, or going back to, like, bringing the acoustic back into it, because everything's been really electric lately. And I've been like, I don't know if that really fits the vibe anymore. And she's like, the vibe is what we choose it to be.
Yeah, exactly.
And Becca and Evan are very big. They're so supportive, because like I say a lot, like, I don't think I'm a great musician. I don't always think I'm the best lyricist, but they're a lot like, but part of what makes King Ink what it is your lyrics. Like, it's very, like, most of my songs are very introspective. I'm not great like Jason at, like, writing characters. Like, I can't paint a picture the way that certain musicians can. I just try to be very honest about stuff. And so what they keep reminding me is that, like, as long as that's still there, it's going to sound like King Ink. And so that's what I always try to keep in mind, is that, okay, maybe this song is a moody or darker song. Maybe this is a huge rock song. Maybe this is like a crazy Huey Lewis saxophone song. As long as that emotional core is still there, it's all going to be King Ink. And that has that and their support. And the thing that I like is that they tell me when ideas are bad. And so like, if I bring a song that they don't think is good, they will respectfully tell me that. And that stops me from putting time and effort into something that might not be our best work. So I don't know. I think it's just helps, as long as, like I said, as long as that emotional core is there, the band is still there. And then that frees us up to kind of go different directions.
That's awesome. Yeah, it seems like, King Ink is unit. It's not just like a solo thing where you're playing with people. And I think that's really important about bands. So
Yes.
you talked a lot about the studio stuff and the band, and I want to hear about the live performances because I've seen like on your social medias, you all been playing a little bit more of live shows lately. You've had some opening shows.
Yeah.
You opened for Sesto recently, correct?
Yeah, we've
Yeah,
opened them
that's
a couple of
cool.
times now. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of times. You have a winter show, and I want to hear more about how has playing live been for you, especially with this new band. You mentioned the
Yeah.
bit about the how you want to kind of captivate the audience, and I want to hear
Yeah.
more about the live show process for you.
The live show part for me is like what it's all about. Like I love writing, I love recording. It feels very like when I'm in the studio, it feels very much like this is the dream, right? Like this is what people
Yeah.
want to do and we get to be here doing it. But the live show is like it is the place where I feel the most like happy. And I mean outside of my family.
Yeah.
Like I mean like just, like vocationally, it's where I feel the happiest.
Hmm.
And I feel like it's where you get to connect. Like again, we talked a little earlier before we started recording. We were talking about parasocial relationships, and like the healthy version of that is somebody on stage connecting with the audience in front of them.
Yeah.
And so I like one thing I've loved about having this permanent rotation or this permanent lineup of the band is that we all get to lock in together. That we're not like teaching. I'm not teaching 3 or 4 new people the same songs, and like that's not part of a rehearsal. The rehearsal is how can we make the live show better. So that's always been super great. But I love performing live. The thing that I love about our West Michigan band scene is that like there's a lot of different pockets, but the pocket that we're in is a pocket that takes care of each other like no else. Like almost every show we've played in 2025 has been because other bands have asked us to come onto the bill with them because they like, because one, we're friends and they like our music, and vice versa. Like we've had the opportunity to say, bring these guys on board because they're great. And so that's always been fun too. Like we have our first headline show in January, and it's a co-headline with this other band called Feeding Grizzlies. They've been some of our best friends all year. And like, it's not just our sets where we play separately. Like I come and play bongos for a couple of their songs. One of their guys plays guitar for us. We have a huge cover we're going to do at the end where all like 8 of us are going to be on stage together. And it just feels very communal and it feels very fun. And I think I've been starting to get to the point the past year where it's the joke of like, it's not just friends and family. Like there are people there who don't know you, who you see singing your words. And that is one of the, like the strange, although earlier this year, I saw someone, we had a show and somebody in the front row was singing along. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a cool feeling. And then it turns out it was a friend of a friend. And the mutual friend said that the reason they know the words is because the CD got stuck in their car and they couldn't get it out. And so
I love
it's the only music they've had in their car for a week. So I was like, it's a win. I'm going to take it. So
that's still pretty cool that they like still listen to it and put on the radio.
Exactly. I didn't just put headphones in. They took the time. No. So for me, it's all about live, and it's really fun for me now because now that we have a good, I don't want to say we have a good reputation. I mean, I think we do, but in our area, but I mean, like, that we're playing more shows, that we can count on shows happening, that we, that we're competitive for shows. Like again, opening for Sisto on national slots and playing with, I opened for Adeem the artist a couple of years ago,
which is pretty cool.
Huge blessing because I love Adeem and their art. It's really cool to kind of get to factor that into songwriting now, where it's like, how is this going to translate live? Because that's one of the most important parts to me. Especially when you're not a big band, where like, if you're opening for somebody else, they're there to see the main act. You've got 30 minutes to capture their attention. And I want people to walk away going, that was fun. It makes like an experience and it makes it different every night, but it also, it's special to that audience. And I love that kind of stuff. I'm always of the sense of like, I'd rather create a more fun time than be perfect with stuff.
Exactly.
And
yeah. And so speaking of communal, I wanted to talk about briefly, like you mentioned the music scene in Grand Rapids. So I talked to a lot of people in the South. So I know like how the music scene is here in like Tuscaloosa and Birmingham and Nashville and North Carolina, all that stuff. But Michigan, I'm not really like that. That's kind of different. So I want to like hear more about your local music scene. I think it's really cool because I also feel like sometimes in the music industry, it can almost be of like you're on your own, like you're fending for yourself, like the competition. And like it can be like we've talked about this gatekeepy,
Yes.
especially with like shows and gigs.
Well,
And
it's
so
competitive
yeah,
too.
it's
It's like there's
competitive.
this
Yeah.
mentality that if you get this gig, you're taking it from me. And so like I can't
Mhm.
support you because that might hurt me in the long run.
Yeah, so it sounds like y'all have a really good kind of like community over there. So I want to hear more about that through
Yeah.
your perspective and how that's kind of blossomed over the last year.
Michigan is, I mean, it's a great state, period. And I
Hmm.
think the music scene in it's really cool. You always obviously got Detroit, and you've get like when Jack White played, he played the halftime show for like the Packers
Yes.
Lions game recently, and everyone
Uh,
was just so proud, or they're just like, "That's my
yeah.
fucking guy," you know. So it's just like that's Jack doing his thing.
Uh,
Um, and so there's a lot of there's the Detroit rock scene, but outside of that, it's very sporadic. There's a lot of like Grand Rapids is the next biggest city in Michigan,
mm,
and there's a very strong music scene locally, but there's a ceiling that you get to, and not a
yeah.
lot of bands break through. And there's a couple of like there's this artist called Michigander who
Yes, I
he
know.
just yeah. So he was just in town last week. My brother opened for him,
Oh,
and
wow.
he's kind of like one of the there's like two or three bands in the state that Billy Strings obviously is another one. Billy's huge, like he's
Yeah.
like almost worldwide, but like
Uh-huh.
these kind of bands that just kind of like break through the membrane a little bit. And I don't know what the secret sauce is because there's no music like Greta Van Fleet, I think is the other big like
Oh,
they're
really? They're
huge.
from
Yeah.
I didn't
They're from
realize that.
a small
Yeah.
town called Frankenmuth, which is famous for its
Oh,
year-round Christmas
yeah.
store.
Yeah,
um,
that is crazy.
but like Greta Van Fleet to Billy Strings to Michigander, like there's not a huge through line. There's a bit of like a
Hmm.
folky, little bit like kind of like daddy sort
Yeah.
of a thing, but really, I I think what ends up happening, there's one band called Pretoria, who are a rock band that just kind of broke out of West Michigan
Hmm.
into Chicago. And it feels like that's basically what happens is like a band kind of breaks out a little bit to like one of the other big markets and then blows up. But
Hmm.
I've always, and I don't know, I've always felt like our band has I try to not like put ourselves down. Like we're not a huge band and we're not a
Hmm.
small band. Like we're able to headline a venue in town, right? Like that
Hmm.
says that people are interested in our music. But I also don't have any ideas that like oh, we're going to be touring next year, doing headline shows all across the country. Like no,
Uh-huh.
of course not. Like kind of
Uh-huh.
and that's kind of why I love Grand Rapids is because it's so like again the pocket that I've found our band in is it's a very
Hmm.
supportive pocket where the bands that we're friends with want to play with each other.
Hmm.
Like you want to play with people that are reliable, that you have fun with, and that you enjoy their music. And that group of us love doing that together. It with my brother's band Low Phase and their stuff, they're in that same sense. It's a different pocket, but there's a lot of bands that are all doing that together because they just enjoy the show. Like they're fans
Hmm.
of their friends. So it's a really supportive scene. There's a lot like there's a huge kind of like folky there's a big folk audience in Michigan. There's some
Hmm.
festivals up north where there's a lot of folk stuff. So
Yeah.
like that's not really our thing. Like that's not where we find ourselves playing.
Hmm.
But I have to assume it's the same across the country where like a lot of states have vibrant music scenes that scenes are just kind of insular and
Yeah.
they're big for the region. And so I think Michigan's got a little bit of that going on. But people do break out. I just
Hmm.
don't know what the secret sauce is to breaking out.
Hmm.
So that's why I kind of go just like we have a vision of what we want to do as a band and where we want to go and what we're how we're going to get there.
Hmm.
But whatever does or doesn't happen along the way, like I don't want to keep beating this dead horse, but like I literally thought this band was going to be done a year ago, and we
Yeah.
we have a headline show and are planning more shows. So like I don't try to have any preconceived notions of anything.
Hmm.
Um, so we'll see.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. And I love that local music scene. So I think we covered a lot of the band stuff. I mean, if
Sure.
there's anything else band wise, maybe we can mention it at the end. But I wanted to just kind of have like a couple music questions
Yeah.
because you are a big
Yes.
music nerd like myself. And so,
We've got a
funny,
lot. Yes.
for the listeners, I actually found JD through, he has a podcast with his best
Yes.
friend. And
Yes.
so y'all started doing Barenaked Ladies, and I'm a huge
Yes.
Barenaked Ladies fan. And so what you did is you went through every single album and you
Yeah.
did commentary, and so you've done that with Coldplay and Radical Face. And I wanted to know, like, how'd you come up with that idea? And specifically, I think it's so interesting that you chose Barenaked Ladies because I feel like they get a lot of criticism because like they're just like that silly, goofy band. I feel like people just they hear 1 week or they hear If I Had $1,000,000 and they just make a judgment of that.
That's the whole band, exactly.
But there's some like, and I think what's so interesting about that being the first one that you chose to deep dive on is they have some great songs that are like really more like say like What a Good Boy or like Bang Job or like there's some really like Light Up My Room, some hidden gems in there, and like I feel like they're overseen. I mean now I feel like they're more of like a legacy act. I have opinions on like their tours and how they roll out things, but I think like there's some really good stuff. But I want to hear more about like your podcast journey and Barenaked Ladies and all that.
So the two bands that I first fell in love with like deeply. Like the first CD I ever bought was by the Fratellis. It was their first album called Costello Music, and that was what kind of because I was raised on a lot of Christian music and like not in an oppressive way, but just like this is what we're listening to kind of way. The first two bands that I got into like deeply personally were Coldplay and Barenaked Ladies. Like those were the first two bands that like, and then it was The Killers and Oasis, ironically. But they're both bands who get a lot of shtick for being who they are. Like Coldplay get made fun of all the time for being Coldplay. BNL they maybe don't get made fun of, but to your point, they have this image of them being kind of a novelty band. They've got that. They've got 1 week the Big Bang theme song and then like $1 million. I'm like, that's what they're known for. And so I think I became resilient musically because I was used to my music taste being made fun of from like middle school on. But Nick and I are huge fans of the podcast Comedy Bang Bang, which is an improv comedy show, and like that whole sphere of music. And that host Scott Aukerman does he does the podcast with Adam Scott, which was You Talking You Two to Me, and then Are You Talking REM Remy? And it was basically we were bored. So those are podcasts where they go through U2 and REM's discography, like one by one, same, it's kind of like same method that we do. And we were just like, I think it was a COVID thing. I think it was 2020, 2021, where we were just like, we've got the equipment, we have the time. Let's just like, it genuinely, I know I'm sure plenty of people say this about their art or their music or their stuff, where it was like, we want to talk about this stuff. We want to have a space to talk about our music or their music. So let's just do that. And then if people listen to it, awesome. So it just started because I think BNL was doing some stuff where we really wanted to just talk more about it and explore more. And then the wildest part about it to me was that we were like genuinely the fourth or fifth Barenaked Ladies podcast that existed.
It's crazy.
And I was talking about earlier about like we're going to do the Killers for our next season, and when we did Coldplay, there were like, as far as we could tell, there were 0 Coldplay podcasts.
Really?
Half a dozen Barenaked Ladies podcasts.
That's so funny to me.
Yeah,
but I don't feel like they have a pronounced fandom like Coldplay or the Killers.
They're the kind of and that's what's so weird about it. They have they're the kind of band to me like. One of the bands I've gotten really into the past 2 or 3 years is the Hold Steady, and
me too.
They're like a band. I saw Craig for the first solo earlier, like in October, I think. But like they seem like a band that have a very established fan base who love and support everything they do. They're probably growing a bit, but it's not like the chances of them having a breakthrough album at this point in their career are just small. That's just the nature of the business. That's fine. BNL is sort of the same thing, where it's like they have a really devoted fan base, and people do go and see them for the novelty of it all. But I think the thing that attracts me to them so much is one thing that I do try to do in King Ink stuff is like they are so vulnerable lyrically. They're silly sometimes to a point where you're like, yeah, they're the silly band, but then like that's normally 1 to 2 tracks out of any 10 to 12. And then everything else is very vulnerable or personable or like deep or self-effacing. And like that's like they don't take themselves too seriously. And then I don't know, have you seen them live at all?
Oh yeah, I saw them live at Red Rocks. That was the first. I happened to be at Red Rocks at the time, and I was like, we just went kind of on a whim. So we were at Red Rocks for bleachers, and the day, it's crazy. The day after, I was like, I want to go back, and I I was told that BNL was so good live, and I was like kind of a casual, like I knew the singles, and then like we saw that Toad the Wet Sprocket and the Gym Blossoms were opening, and my mom was like, "Okay, I'm down."
Crazy.
Yeah, she's like, "I'm down," and so like all day I refreshed, and we got tickets, and I was like, "This was great," and I like became obsessed with them afterwards, and I was like, "This is great." They captivate you, like as somebody that never heard their music, I was like, never heard like their non-singles. I was like, "This is really fun," and they are engaging.
They are, and that's the thing that I love the most is that like you can go in almost blind, not knowing any of their songs, and still go, that was a fun 2 hours or hour and a half. And because they're captivating, because they're funny, because the music, like they're great musicians. We joke that neither Nick or I are really fans of some of their newer, like the direction that they're going, which is a really big bummer because it stinks to not be excited about your favorite bands releasing new music. Because every time now it's kind of like, what's going to sound like? But even still, like, I don't know, they're so fun, and like I've never regretted seeing them, and I think they're one. And so like that's, again, like I said, we always want to channel that, but that's what it was with the podcast. It was just like, hey, let's just talk about. And I think part of it was like, to your point, we wanted to kind of defend them a little bit and kind of showcase like they are more than just these 4 or 5 like silly single songs. Like Pinch Me is still one of my favorite songs of all time, and it's one of their bigger songs, and it's known for being the fast talky song, but it's super emotional.
And if you listen to it, it's like, it's, and I think that's what's so great about them, and is that they're able to channel these things. But I hate that they just get like kind of put in that. And I feel like I don't know if you like They Might Be Giants, but I feel like that's a similar thing with them. Is that they're putting kind of like, oh, they're the hot dog Mickey Mouse like kids band. I'm like, no, if you listen to some of these like They Might Be Giants songs, like they're morbid, they're vulnerable, they're random. They're like all over the place, and I feel like people are so quick, especially with bands of, especially like those 90s 2000s, like Coldplay's the same. It's like people just kind of characterize them, which is untrue. I mean, Coldplay's another band that they have, so once you dive deep into their catalog, there's some really strong stuff.
There is. And like I think the thing that I look for the most in musicians, and again, this is where that whole parasocial thing can be kind of dangerous, is like what I look for is like authenticity and earnestness. And like I totally understand people's criticisms that the Coldplay of now is not like the Coldplay of 15 years ago. I get that. Or even 20 years ago. Like, or, like it's vastly different music. It's poppier, it's rock. But like when people start to say, oh, they sold out, I'm like, I don't think they do. I think Chris Martin just became friends with people who did pop music, and he wanted to hang out with them. And that's what stuff that he started to write. And it was a natural, like if you listen to Coldplay's discography, it's a relatively natural progression to where they are now in this like kind of pop rock arena. You don't have to like it. That's like, that's totally fine. But I think that they are very earnest about what they're trying to do. And they have this whole message of like love and universal, like togetherness and community. And it feels very real to me. And so, that's what and I think BNL is the same way in its own way, where like the Mountain Goats are the same way. Like all these bands that I love, they have these communities that bring people together. They're not huge on like I got like this past year I got into Idols, the punk band, and I love their music, and it's so much fun. But again, they seem like a band where their community and their message is a message of love, and like F the bad guys, F the government, all these things, but to protect people, to bring people together. And so I don't know, I look for bands that are trying to do something positive in the world, I guess, even big ways or small. And I think BNL, I think Coldplay, I think all these bands that I find, like even Bleachers, right? Like little things like donating a dollar from every ticket, right? It's like they're trying to build community, they're trying to help causes, they're trying to take care of other people.
A lot of these bands are like with Reverb and a head count and all of these things. Like Jack Antonoff has a charity. And so,
exactly.
And Coldplay, what they do for the environment and the bikes and everything. And I think you make a great point about Coldplay, because I was raised on Coldplay. I was like, it was Coldplay, John Mayer, Dave Matthews. Like that's what I was listening to like my whole life. Yeah,
I love that. Yeah.
So like I'm very acquainted with Coldplay's discography. And when people say they sold out, I'm like, I don't think they sold out, because if you listen to like A Head Full of Dreams, or even like Ghost Stories, like and like some of and their newest stuff, this stuff, like they might have one song like a I think A Sky Full of Stars is one of the funniest like things to me because it's this huge hit. It was massive. I think it kind of catapulted them into this era that they are now. But you listen to that album, and that album is that song does not fit.
Yes.
And I think that's so funny. I think that's the case with a lot of their stuff. Like they'll have that one stray song that like really connects to people, and that will be the song that everybody hears. Like when you actually like listen to Ghost Stories, it's like, oh my god, like this is complete. And I think Ghost Stories is the best. But
yes, it is. I love Ghost Stories, and yeah, I think like there's definitely an art to being like, we're gonna have a song that we know is gonna be a radio hit. We know it's gonna be popular and stuff like that. But you can do that while still being honest in your songwriting. Like I don't think that Coldplay do anything, like I said, dishonestly or just to get the hits. Like you know with what is it My Universe, their song with BTS, where it's like. Yeah, they probably knew that would be a hit, but I also think Chris is just like, I want to sing with these people that I know or that I've heard about. Like, I don't think they do anything just for the business. I think they do things because like they enjoy it and they like it. And if that happens to connect with, I mean, obviously they're at a point where they're gonna connect with people. Good, awesome for them. But yeah, I don't know. I agree. I don't think Coldplay. I don't think they've sold out. I think they've changed. Like, you cannot argue that listening to Parachutes and then listening to like Music of the Spheres 1 or 2, you're not going to go, oh, that sounds exactly the same. There are some through lines, but they're different. It's different genres. So but it's the same way I feel about BNL, right? Where I'm like, or even Arctic Monkeys, like they're not they're not a top 10 for me, but they're definitely like top 20. Where they've really shifted genres over the past 2 or 3 albums, and that's cool. Their most recent album's not my favorite of theirs, but I don't like. It's when people make it personal and they start like making fun of the band or saying they're bad. It's like, no, they created art you didn't care for. That's the end of it. That's all that matters.
Yeah. Like, and I think we're allowed to evolve as humans. Like we go through phases. I just dropped something. We go through phases. We go through, you know, our tastes evolve. And I think to judge people solely off of that is like, I feel like music has more nuance than that. And I feel like people struggle to, and especially with like the Coldplays of the world. And I think it's also important with bands like Coldplay, and I think even Oasis is a good example, is to have that music that maybe it's not like the deepest, most like sonically crazy thing that you've ever written, but they're able to play to millions of people a year and all over the world, and people who don't even speak English as their primary language connect to those songs. And I feel like there is something about that is like worth recognizing, whether you like it or not. I think they're doing something that's affecting people.
And that's what makes music so tricky, is like it is the most personal and the most universal thing. And I think we can get into this trap of, if it doesn't connect to me, it's not good, or it can make fun of it, or it's not. Like Noel Gallagher has some of like what feel like the deepest songs and some of the most nonsensical songs lyrically, where I'm just like, you're just throwing phrases together, brother, and I respect you for it. But like one of those is not inherently worth more than the other. Like this might connect to me more, this might connect to that person more. It doesn't. Art serves different purposes, and like music is beautiful because it can touch you so deeply from somebody else's writing, but also because you can connect to people who don't speak the same language as you. Like you said, like you can sing. Coldplay or Oasis can go to Tokyo and sell out arenas and stadiums and have people connecting and singing along. And I think we get this notion that like if a band releases a song or an album that doesn't connect with you, then we discard that as like, it's not worth it, or it's bad, or they've sold out, or it's just like, it just wasn't for you. But also in a weird way, it wasn't for you to begin with.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you don't deserve for a band to, like, that's what I get most frustrated about, especially on Reddit. And I know Reddit's, Reddit, but like, when people are just talking about how this band isn't good anymore, or they're past their prime, and it's like, it's very hard to be objective about music. Very rarely can you look at a song and go, that is an objectively bad song. I think the biggest theme for me in life the past, I'd say 12 to 18 months, has been very little is black and white. Everything is nuanced. Everything is gray. And if you operate in a black and white world, you're going to have a much more difficult time than you need to. And like even emotionally, if something's coming up, yes, I'm excited about this, and I'm also anxious about this. You don't have to pick one. Like this music does not connect for me, and it does for somebody else. That's great. No one's the weird rabbit hole I'll go down for like 10 seconds is like I like Star Wars movies when the sequels came out. Like I don't enjoy most of the sequels. I think episode 8, the one that Rian Johnson did, I think it's fantastic. As a whole, it's a very disappointing trilogy. That does not take away from my enjoyment of the other movies.
Exactly.
I don't understand this idea that it's like, well, now that there's 3 bad Star Wars movies, I guess Star Wars sucks. It's
since Disney bought them out, like I feel that about Marvel too. Like I was like when the Prime MCU, I was very into it. Now it's like it's almost too diluted, and there's a lot of things I don't. But I'm not going to be like, oh, I just hate it like entirely. Like I still consider myself a fan of the franchise, even if I don't like every single movie that is out. Or there's like TV shows are another good example. There's some shows that I would say like, this is one of my favorite shows, but maybe the first season or the last season's not the best. But it's still still objectively as a piece of art, it's good.
It's and I don't understand. I completely agree with all of that, because I just don't no one's I understand and empathize with feeling like if your favorite character was Iron Man, let's just say, and and then they make Iron Man 5 and it was, or 4 I guess, and it was garbage. Like there's a new one. I totally understand being disappointed that something that you enjoyed turned out to not have a great product, but it's like inclusive of that, no one isn't forcing you to watch something or listen to music.
Exactly.
Like with the new BNL albums, like I said, their newest album is it's one of my least favorite that they've done.
I agree.
No one's forcing me to listen to it.
Yeah, exactly.
I have to listen to it. I can listen to the ones on that album that I like, and then I can listen to all of the other stuff by them that I love and continue living my life. Like I'm not being held down with it blasting in my ears.
Yeah.
I don't know why I have to have such a strong, why you have to have such a strong reaction to something.
And how people, I feel like some people, when they don't like something, they have the compulsion where anytime somebody says that they do like that thing, they have to be like, I hate that thing. And I think like on a wide scale, I mean, like Taylor Swift is a great example. Like people are so like quick. Like when I was growing up, it was like One Direction. Like people like if they don't like something, they have to let it know.
I've seen
it in smaller communities too.
The thing that I try to stop myself doing is to have if someone likes something that I don't, is to have the compulsion to tell them that. Because like, why? Like if someone goes, oh, like this new album is great, and I'm not gonna unless we're having a discussion about it, specifically, I don't understand this compulsion to make sure people know that you dislike something. It's like, why? Like if you dislike an album, okay, just dislike that in your own time. You don't need to try to bring other people down or make sure you're like somebody liking something. Again, talk about music. I'm trying to be careful. Like, it's not offensive. Somebody being a fan of a band that you don't like does not mean you need to make a point of letting them know. Just enjoy your stuff and don't enjoy your stuff. And that's why it's like music is great because you get to be surrounded by people in a venue who are all there to enjoy the same thing together. Generally speaking, they're all there to enjoy it together. I don't understand why why people sometimes want to do the opposite, where it's like, I need people to know that I dislike this or that it's bad, or, well, I think that it's not as lyrically deep as it. Like, okay, fine, think that, dude.
Yeah.
Like, but don't try to bring other people down.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I think you make a great point there, and it's been so great being able to talk to you. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that you maybe want to bring up with the band? I know you're teasing new music. Anything you want to say about that, and where we can find your music and keep up with you and all that?
Yeah, you can find. Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, if you're in Michigan listening to this, we've got our big headline show in Grand Rapids on January 17th. You can find all that on social. But I think if you're listening to this and you're not in the Grand Rapids region or feeling like making a huge drive, our next single will come out on January 17th, which is called Gone in a Flash, and that will be released on the same day. So I think that's the big thing that people can say is, we're on Spotify, we're on Bandcamp, we're on all of the streaming
and
platforms.
all the links will be in the description as well. Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing, kind of keeping on the theme here, obviously we're doing this interview for a reason outside of just liking to talk. I want people to listen to our music. Like, if you're interested, listen to it. And if you like it, share it with somebody. Like, that's it's insane to me how powerful that is to just share a song with somebody for the artist, but also hopefully for the people. So if you like our stuff, listen to it and share it and follow on social, all that good stuff. But I'm just grateful to get to talk in the first place. So
yes, it's been so great getting to talk to you, and it's been a lot of fun. And yeah, good luck with the show.